is a bright, early Monday morning, and we got some rogue actions coming at you guys hot, and we're going to try to lighten the mood today. It's been, man, what an intense weekend, Heinzie.
It has. Yeah. Been a bit of a slow news week, Cubs. Not much has happened over the last week. So pretty quiet. I can't really think of too much to talk about. It'll be fun, right?
If only something was going on. Yeah.
Man.
They gave us a lot to talk about. Yeah.
Did they unload the dump truck or what? Wow, we got everything. Good and bad. So, we got a lot to talk about. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
A lot to talk about, and I do want to. I want to be as optimistic as possible here. And lighten the mood a little bit. For those of you who are still here, you probably haven't quit, and so a lot of people are quitting. And so if you're still here, all right, let's ride this thing out, and let's look at the bright side of life. And so the first subject here we're going to talk about after our mini moment is I really don't think that Galaxy of Heroes is dying because of these changes. We're gonna kind of talk about why. Now, let me be clear. That doesn't mean that I think everything is fine right now, but I'm not thinking that this is an apocalyptic scenario either. And then we've covered the subject of the road ahead quite a lot on the channel already. Did a vlog video on it, did an initial reaction video, did a whale chat on it, and so we've kind of beat a lot of this stuff dead. But I haven't heard from you guys on exactly what you want to hear about, and so today I've got 7 questions from the chat that we're going to address as well. Here at the end of the video, some really good, honest questions here that I think are important. But first, we got to get to our mini moment, and even Crumb is going to love this meme.
Yep. He will.
It's Crumb posing in front of Thrawn. Rip Thrawn!
He's looking pretty sharp, Crumb, right there in that pic. He's looking pretty schmick.
Oh, man. And the meme is really not that accurate because I guarantee you Crumb did not have anything to do with the decision to nerf Thrawn. He's just the community guy who's communicating things and doing so in an awesome way, I think. I'm sure that he had a lot to do with the production of that video and how it ended up. He probably didn't have much of a say in the content that was in the video, and so I'm sure part of that was through gritted teeth for him too. I don't know. So anyway, you gotta love Crumb.
Oh, look, he's great. I think you're right. I did actually like the format of the video. I thought that actually explained a lot more than the normal post did. I liked that format. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of got the vibe along the way that he was a little bit uncomfortable about talking about certain topics. Again, I think that it's definitely not driven by him. We know that, as you said. So. I think someone's got to be the face in front of the camera, and I believe that was definitely him. Yeah.
Yep. And he's doing a good job. So Crumb, we love you, even though we're all raging right now. We love you. But that leads me into our next topic here. Galaxy of Heroes, Heinzie, it's not dead. I just want to say something clear, as clear as I possibly can, because I see people say a lot, CG is killing their game. All right. Mm-hmm. This changes, bad mistakes could lead a game out the window. Yes, it's possible. But that is definitely not why CG is making decisions like this. This is clearly, I think, based on the language they use, how they presented it, and everything that's going on, it seems very obvious to me that the decisions they're making here are because they genuinely feel like it does benefit the long-term health of this game. Now, right now, I think the piece that I'm missing and that you're missing is I don't see how it does right now. But I don't have all of the data in front of me that they are looking at that motivates and drives those decisions. And so there is an optimist side of me, even though I feel like this sucks and I don't like this, that give it 6 months, a year, and maybe we feel similar to how we felt about Relics. Nobody liked Relics at first, but what did Relics do to the game? It actually, I think, put the game objectively in a much better spot as a result. So what are your thoughts on that? Am I being overly optimist here?
I think, okay, so again, I've seen like you have, we've seen posts of people going, that's it, I've had enough, I'm out. Like we've seen posts like along the lines of, it's going to kill the competitive spirit of the game. We've seen all this sort of stuff, and we've heard a lot of this before. Yeah, certainly. And again, 12 months ago, we sat probably in these chairs talking about the introduction of Relics, where there was no doubt that there was a serious exodus of players at that time, and there was. I know of communities.
We've seen this before. We've seen changes where players leave.
Yeah, we've seen 20, 30% of a player base in a community disappear in a couple of days. It happens. But I think you're absolutely right. I think Relics came out and they definitely changed up the game. We were using characters that we weren't using before. All of a sudden, they were more powerful. They were more useful in our rosters. And again, we have to be really careful with the limited information that we've gotten so far to really jump into a conclusion that this is it and it's all over and it's going to wreck everything, because they would have had to have considered the fallout of a big call like this before announcing it. I don't think they just do it and go, deal with it. They know the implications of the decisions they make. They're big and bad enough to know that. They really are. So I think that we just have to be really, really cautious at this point until we get more information on, how it's going to play out, or play testing, or it comes out in the wild, and then make your decision then, whether that's okay or not. I think that's the prudent way to go.
So that actually leads us very well into our Q&A, because our first question comes from Mustang Groot. And he asked very simply, what are the positive effects of the changes? And the changes that I'm going to specifically highlight are the balance changes in the game. Obviously, there's adding characters and changing conquest and everything like that. I think there's pretty obvious reasons why those might be positive, but I think he's more asking, like, how does this benefit us? And to me, that question is a wait and see question. Because obviously CG is looking for long-term balance. And I do think that it makes sense when you have a game with the kits that are as intricate and complicated as this game gets, that you run into these design issues that are built into the game and stick around and make it so you've got all these weird caveats in kits. And I think that's pretty much what they're getting at here. And that makes sense to me. So I think that, from a balance perspective, could be very good and healthy for this game in terms of kit design and what kinds of characters we get. The piece I'm missing right now is I personally can't think of a positive reason for Galactic Legends to be uncounterable by non-Galactic Legend characters. So the only positive bit of optimism I have is maybe that's not exactly what it looks like, and we're going to have to wait and see. But it kind of sounds like that's what they're saying.
Yeah. I think the announcement, and I've talked about this before, I think the announcement really is a massive due to theory crafters.
It feels that way.
And spend hours and hours and hours upon hours coming up with complex team compositions that take down their pride and joy. And that's how I see it from an outside perspective point of view. I don't know anyone there. You know that. It's just my opinion. And I think that that's something that I don't necessarily think it's a massive positive. I think it definitely creates another issue, or another couple of issues that really has hopefully been considered. And one of those is, alleviating other parts of the game that will make it easier to achieve these legends, because they're the only way that you're actually going to be physically able to get them. You need them now. That's the way they're pushing it.
And that's why another reason why I really don't like the idea of GLs can't be countered without GLs, because for a beginning level player, all that matters is that blitz to a GL. That's it.
Correct. Yeah.
And there's so many other characters I feel like you really kind of need to get on your path there. And it's just like, all right, so now what are we telling new players? Like, forget everything, just go for Sith Eternal.
Yeah.
Because he's the fastest one to get, maybe.
And the issue with that is that I think that it also limits the variety of teams that you will use in your roster, because if you're already farming these guys up, you're forced to farm them to unlock them. They're the same teams you're going to see on the defense walls of Territory Wars and GAC, for instance, because they're the ones that everyone's going to have, right? So you're not going to come up with these wild and wacky teams that you've been using that work in other areas of the game quite well. They're just going to be pushed to the wayside. So we have to be cautious of that too,
So moving on, Bezer has a very interesting question that I think kind of goes along with this as well. Do we think that Padme with Cat specifically will be nerfed to remove the possible GL counter? And here's how I would answer that personally. Tell me if you'd add anything, Heinze. I do not think that team is going to get nerfed at all. But I also don't necessarily think that they are going to still be able to beat GLs for two reasons. Number one, GLs are getting buffed. We've got the shoring up going on. And number two, Relic 9. which seems like it's specifically looking at adding that tank viability, which GLs right now already one of the most difficult parts to deal with is just how long it takes to kill a GL. And Relic 9, I think, is going to make that significantly harder. So I personally am not planning on Padme and Cat being a viable GL counter.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. Again, there's no need to make any changes to it because, by increasing the power and the health level of Galactic Legends, they're just going to either time out or get wiped.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's really a huge issue as far as a change there. But it's still going to be a great team to use against other sides, just not the big boys and girls. Let's be honest. So again, it's still going to be a very viable team, and it's something that I'll certainly be paying attention to, like many of us will.
So another question from Mind Blown: what teams will get an unintentional buff? And there actually is a lot. If you really dig into the post, there's kind of I kind of go cross-eyed with just how much information is there about how many changes are coming to so many different teams. But I remember one I remember reading over in particular was Vader's kit. There were some significant nerfs, but there were also some buffs that I think could give him additional viability, not against GLs. So the thing is a lot of these teams are going to become useless against GLs, it feels like, but against non-GL teams, maybe more terrifying. And Vader was one that kind of stood out to me in that regard. Did you see anything else along those lines?
Okay, so the ones that immediately stand out with the chat about Relic 9 straight away is that they've even mentioned that it's going to really make tanks a lot harder to deal with. They mentioned that. Farm your Bosk, guys. Get your Bosk up there. Your Houndstooth's going to be disgusting, both with the new capital ship coming out as well as just in general use. Fives, of course, as well in a 501st team. 501st, whilst again they're tweaking gas slightly, they're also going to be boosting fives. So there's going to be different parts there in different areas where it's going to be a little bit of going to be a bit of a takeaway, but it's also going to be a little bit of give back in another way, I think. And I think they need to tune that and get that right. And that might even take a little bit of time down the track to tweak as well to make sure they dial that in. Because I'm pretty sure they have a pretty clear idea on what they want to do where across the board, but they're just not going to announce all that with everything else that came out too.
If you remove the GL consideration from a lot of the changes for these characters, a lot of them don't really feel like nerfs anymore.
Yeah.
But I am totally comfortable considering them nerfs because a lot of these characters are being used exclusively to counter GLs. But
Correct.
Taking that out of the equation, there is, except for I think Watt objectively just got wrecked. And it bothers me. But anyway, that's kind of another issue. So, all right. And this is an interesting question as well. This comes from Heller. Will they change SLKR's AI interaction with fives? If not, the Rex-led 501st with Xeris will still work. And the AI, one thing I hate the AI considerations sometimes because they're a lot less discussed. They can make an AI tweak that is effectively a massive nerf, and they do it quietly. They don't really say anything about it, don't really need to call anything out on it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. To me, it just kind of depends on what their goals are for this. And I think that the stated goal, basically, I mean, they're not really being subtle about it, is that non-GL characters don't beat GLs.
That's the plan.
And if that's the case, then I do think that they change that interaction.
Yeah. I think that they definitely do not want what I'm going to call now, let's call Galactic Legends A tier teams, okay? Let's call them A team, or the B plus teams. So a lot of the teams that have been basically countering Galactic Legends, your Vader teams, things like that. They're basically going to be not possible one way or another. They're going to engineer it so that they cannot affect or take down a Galactic Legend. We need to prepare for that. That's the whole idea here.
That really is, like, out of everything, going back to this, that's the biggest piece I have a hard time accepting, because we've done this so many times. Characters getting buffed, characters getting nerfed, GLs getting buffed, counters getting nerfed, things like that. We've had paywall increases. We've had all of these things going on in the game, and we're kind of used to it in the game. Life goes on, but we've never had such a blanket statement of, we've got this group of characters, they're not going to be countered by anything else in the game other than themselves. We've never had that big of a division before, and so that's really just the main piece. I'm just like, I can't see how that's good for the game. I just can't let go of that. Everything else in the road ahead, I think I could maybe wrap my mind around, but that piece in particular is just very, very difficult for me to see any benefit to. And so I really hope that we're just maybe overreacting, and maybe that's not exactly what they're doing.
But we do have to remember one thing, Cubs. We have to remember one thing. We have in this community an insane group of very, 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 very clever people that if there's a way, it will be found. And let's be clear, and there'll be videos on it. If something comes up that works, you're going to know about it.
But if their goal is, like, they've got all the power, right? If their goal is, we are never going to let non-GLs beat GLs now, then all of that just gets nerfed, right?
Correct.
As soon as we find something, they go, okay, done. You know, and so I think if that's their goal and they're just going to be staunch about that, I'm really concerned about how that's a good thing for the game.
I think that's their goal, though, isn't it, Cubs? Let's be honest, straight up. That's their goal.
That's why I'm so concerned, because it seems like it is, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I'm having a hard time accepting it.
They don't want characters we've had in our roster 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, beating their brand new toys.
And I get that they should be better. Like, GLs should obviously be better, but they are. They are. Yeah. They're very difficult to counter without GLs. And so it's not like we're talking about people are just waltzing in there with CLS and having no problems. Like, this is difficult to do. This requires specific mods, specific attack strategy.
True.
Your win rate is going to be lower percentage. And anyway.
And that's why it's a slap in the face for those guys that have come up with these teams. And really, there is a very small amount of people that use these consistently. And it's a huge change to the game overall for a small group of players that are smart enough to work their way around it. But that's what they want. And like always, guys, we don't make the game. If they want it that way, that's the way it's going to be played. It's their rules. So whilst you agree or disagree, there is no way, shape, or form that Galactic Legends will not be an A-tier class character that can only be beaten with another A-tier class character, whatever that is. That's what they want. Like it or lump it. That's what they want.
I lump it. I don't even know what that means.
I don't agree with it. I'm just saying that's what they want. That's what they want. That's why they're going to all this.
Man. I just, and again, like I said, maybe a year from now we'll realize why this happened. But I just, there's part of me that's holding out that thinks maybe it's not going to be as bad as it seems. But
it doesn't seem great on paper. Let's be honest. It seems really negative, but we haven't got all the facets of it yet. We've got a piece of it.
I'd really like something I'd really love to hear CG come out and clarify is,
I think
is your goal here to allow to never allow non-GLs to beat GLs? And if not, I'd love them to say, hey, we're shoring up GLs, we're addressing some of these interactions, but we're not opposed to, to theory crafting and good counters and things like that. I don't know. Let's move on. We've beaten that subject dead.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Heinze.
It's always my fault.
Dory Solomon asks,
Hey, Dory.
or Solomon, will the Executor be needed for Lord Vader? And this question petrifies me because if the answer to that is yes, then the cost to get Lord Vader is going to be insane because we've got, that would effectively, isn't there 2 Relic 8s needed for the Executor and already 2 Relic 8s needed for Lord Vader? So that would be 4 Relic 8s effectively needed for Lord Vader. I am not convinced that they're going to do that. I actually think that we might require one of Lord Vader's ships. We already have 3 marquee characters required for Lord Vader. I think we're probably going to have 5 marquee characters required for Lord Vader. I think Omega and Echo will be added to that mix. And so I feel like that would be too much. And based on how CG handled the Jedi Master Kenobi requirements, I feel like they will be nicer than that, but I could be wrong.
Well, okay, this is not in my wheelhouse, Cubs, with predictions. We know that. This is not my wheelhouse. So, again...
Yeah, where's Maul?
Oh, he's coming. Just, I knew he was coming. Just the wrong spot.
You knew he was coming as a GL. You knew it.
Yeah, I thought he was coming as a GL. that was on me. But, hey, we're getting a bit more. But we'll talk about that on my video, right? We'll come back to that.
Okay.
We're not there yet.
All right.
But yeah, it's one of those situations where if if the executor is required, and I'm saying if, because I hope they don't. But I don't think there's any doubt so far with what we've seen requirements-wise that Lord Vader is going to be, it's definitely going to be a lot more difficult to achieve than Kenobi is as far as to acquire. So if Executor is required, and there's a possibility of it, let's be honest, it will want to be a meta-breaking fleet. It will want to be something that really is Galactic Legend style ship. But really, I don't like it, but it needs to. If they're going to include it, so you need to invest all those resources in it, it's got to be really worthwhile, not just chuck it in your roster and not using it. It needs to be something that sits in your arena payout. It really does. That's an if it's a requirement. Otherwise, people are going to be pretty angry because, again, it's just another addition for something they're not going to use. And we've got a few of those lately. So, again, there's a lot of other things with ships that, again, need to be addressed, including having more of them.
I'm personally having a hard time too, and I'm not complaining about this. I'm just having a hard time with it personally, with wrapping my mind around the requirements for the Executor being so steep. Because, and the reason why, and I'm not a free to play. I don't spend a ton. I wouldn't consider myself a whale, but I'm a good dolphin, and the requirements already feel like for GLs, it's just like, okay, here we go. This is tough. This is going to take a long time. And it's having it be that way for, I mean, I've got 3 GLs now. I'm just working on getting Kenobi finished. I got 2 other GLs to worry about. Plus, this new one with Lord Vader. Add this ship on top of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I be competitive if I don't drop everything and go for this ship right now? And Dengar Relic 5, IG-88 Relic 5, Bosk Relic, IG-88 is not too bad, or Dengar and Bosk not too bad. TIE Fighter Pilot, that's a tough one. Boba Fett Relic 8, ouch. Relic 8 is very tough. Admiral Piet Relic 8, I actually really like that requirement because I love Piet. I think he's an amazing character, but still another Relic 8. Darth Vader's not too bad. It's just tough to accept as somebody, somebody who doesn't spend a lot on the game.
With that list, let's start with Boba Fett. So firstly, Slave 1's going to get a huge buff with Boba Fett that high. Okay, so Slave 1's certainly going to be increased. When the Executor arrives and we use that in that lineup, it's going to be a lot more viable and a lot more powerful than it currently is. That's why they put that in there, right? So you are obviously farming a pilot. That's not a bad thing. You're not just getting a character, you're getting a pilot as well. Now, when it comes to Dengar, there is obviously a really good possibility that he has a ship. We could get a Dengar ship as well. And again, that would be another pilot. So there always is that possibility, certainly.
At least the characters are really useful, except for maybe IG-88, maybe TIE Fighter Pilot. You can find niche uses for those 2 characters, by the way. But Dengar, Bosk, Boba Fett, Admiral Piet, and Darth Vader are all very good characters to have in the relics. Especially Piet and Vader. And so, it's not like the requirements once you get there are bad. It's just like adding effect, almost a ship GL to the mix when we already have so many other GLs to farm that we're eternally behind on unless you're spending copious amounts of money on the game. Just feels stifling right now because what is Grant? I mean, right now I wanna pivot immediately to Lord Vader farming, but I'm questioning if I can afford to do that. Like, what are the consequences of not having the new ship meta in Grand Arena?
We're going to know in the next few weeks. They've mentioned when the next set of requirements are coming out. We're going to know sooner rather than later if it's a requirement. I would definitely like to hear from them sooner than that if it is a requirement or not. If there's a chance of finding out, that would be fantastic.
I'm almost going to suggest right now that it is more important to go for these ships than it is to go for whatever the next GL is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
I think it will, because
you come alone are worth it. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's the ship meta, and people don't like ships. I get it. You're a huge fan of ships, Cubs.
I respect ships more than I used to because it's been a while. It's been a while since I lost a Grand Arena because of ships. All right, it's been a while.
They don't respect you sometimes, man. Anyway, whole different story, right? It's a tricky one, but it is obviously still an important part of the game. It needs a massive overhaul. We've talked about this in Rogue Actions previously. It needs some more love. It needs a lot more attention. It really, really does. So again, if requirements are coming in and they have more than just one use as far as a character use, if they're a pilot as well, it then at least gives you more incentive to farm it because you're not just using that. You will be gaining something in the ship as well. That can't be a bad thing.
Good. This is a really good discussion. I almost feel like I need to do a whole video on this, and so we may unpack this ship consideration a little bit more in a video later this week, fam. Stay tuned for that. One last question to wrap things up, and we'll try to be just a little bit quick on this. I know this video is getting long, and we got another video to get to for you guys today, but there's a lot to discuss. Beer Fett, one of my favorite people ever, asks, is it going to be worth it to relic 8 non-GLs?
Yes, absolutely.
And here's what I would say to that. Let me just jump in here and say one thing about this. You can't afford to relegate GLs right now. Unless you have a lot of money you can invest in the game. Right now, CG is dictating which characters you relegate. Right now, you are relegating Padme, General Skywalker, Piet, and Boba Fett, Yoda, and General Kenobi. Those are the 6 characters you have to take to relegate right now. I can't even take my JML or my Kenobi to relegate because I feel like those resources are way too valuable and it's going to delay me getting the next important thing. And so I'm actually pretty frustrated with what they're doing with relegate right now because I don't feel like I have any agency in what I relegate unless I'm willing to just drop hundreds of dollars every month for relegate materials or sell my soul to raids. And even then, that's not enough.
That's the point, Cubs. That's the point. They don't want you to have everything immediately. We want it immediately. They don't want you to do that. Let's be honest,
it's not even immediately right now.
It's a collection game.
I'm starting right now to farm Lord Vader potentially. That's something that I'm looking at having in 2 months right now. But if I relegate a GL right now, then that's going to move that 2-month target to like a 3 or 4 month target plus.
I don't disagree with you.
And then what else comes out at that point that I have to relegate? That's why I don't like them requiring relegate because of how long it takes to get those resources for the common man. Having that many characters at relegate requirements makes it so that you can't decide who you relegate. I have taken 1 character to relegate because I wanted to take that character to relegate. It was SWGoH, and then relegate requirements came out, and I have not taken anybody else to relegate that was not required for a GL.
Yeah. But we've been chasing characters for 5 years, Cubs. Why is this any different? That's what they want you to do.
This is different.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not, because again, they are very, very high requirements. I totally get it. You need to make decisions in your roster what A, you can actually achieve efficiently, and B, what you actually need to make your roster better. That's been an ongoing problem for a long, long time. And many people out there, of course, are fortunate enough to be able to do it all. Not everyone is.
I feel like it's the same problem, just on steroids. How about that?
It is, because they definitely want to they want to aim for the long term. They're going for the long game here. Let's be honest. That it's going to be a point where you've been unlocking something instantly. They're now setting things up that you cannot do that. You need to work harder to unlock these guys. That's what they want you to do. They don't want you to have it immediately.
What bothers me is in my mind, I don't even feel like I can afford to relegate a galactic legend.
Yeah. Yeah. But you will, because you're going to get rewards from conquest in time, and you're going to be able to do that without anything else. Well, every time
by the time I get my Lord Vader and my Piet ship sorted out, where are my relics going to be? Like, what else is going to be coming out?
It's going to be done tomorrow. I really don't know. I am playing devil's advocate here. I'm sorry. I'm not sitting here going,
boo this man.
No, I am just stating the fact that, again, I think they're kind of sick of us having everything instantly.
Well, it's not instant though. It's waiting, and they're putting more. Here's just the other thing too, Heinzie, that's I think really important is now with what they're doing with GLs. Okay, so now we're making it so you can't count it on GLs. So basically, if you don't have more GLs than your opponent, it's a prisoner's dilemma, or you lose, right?
Yes.
So I have to go for the GLs because if I don't, I get screwed in Grand Arena. I have to go for Piet's ship because if I don't, I get screwed in Grand Arena. And so I have to pursue this. There's no agency at this point. If I'm going to remain competitive, CG has laid out the path of exactly what characters I have to take to Relic 8. There is no player agency on Relic 8 right now unless you are spending thousands of dollars on this game, period.
However, that poses a whole different conversation, Cubs. And the reason that you won't be competitive, or you could be, comes down to the matchmaking. And that, to me, is a bigger issue now with these changes.
Which they confirmed they're not going to adjust.
And that, to me, I see a huge problem.
Yeah.
Now, if you go in a GAC with these new changes, or if you go into a territory war with less Galactic Legends than your opponent, you will not have a chance of success. And that's not great. It really isn't, because you're taking away everyone else's capabilities that do not have a Galactic Legend to beat these guys. If you have 3 and they have 2, you set 3, you're going to win.
And you know what? This whole conversation hasn't even brought up?
Mm-hmm.
Relic 9.
I know, because we're covering that in mind in a minute.
Yeah, it just like it's not like I'm bothered by the gear gate, by the paywall, by all these things are just so normal in this game. I think where I'm starting to get frustrated is just like, holy crap, with how long it takes to get to these things, I am not even able to decide what I'm going to take there right now. And if I do decide, you know what, I really want to take my Kenobi to Relic 8, my Galactic Legend to Relic 8, or hell, to Relic 9. And if I do that, it screws over my competitive edge in Grand Arena, because it delays significantly how long I am waiting to get my Lord Vader or my my Executor. So anyway, guys,
I agree. I don't disagree with you. I think there's a lot to go through yet. We still need to see a lot. We definitely need a huge, we need the gear crunch, just loosened. We really do, because a lot of people,
and that addresses this problem, doesn't it?
We're talking Relic 8, we're talking Relic 9. People don't even have Relic 1 yet, and a lot of them don't have that, because they don't have the accessibility to even get to Gear 13 Relic level. That needs to be addressed now as well. There's so many more moving parts that we don't know yet that need to be adjusted, and they need to look at it, and I'm sure they have. But we don't know enough yet. We've only just found out this is happening. We don't know the meat and potatoes of exactly everything yet. So that's why we need to be careful.
And they called out that the gear crunch was something they were looking at when they did the shard increase of drop rates, right? They said that one of the things they were looking at was gear. We've heard nothing since then about that. I think that would be the best possible thing for them to address right now. And if they did so in an effective way, it could significantly alleviate my concerns in this area. But so far, I think that's another piece that gets very frustrating, is that we've got this increase in how much gear is needed, how much relic materials are needed, all this stuff that's needed. It's more and more and more. And the accessibility to that stuff does not increase along with it at all. And
not even at parity.
And it hasn't since they dropped Gear 12, for crying out loud. And so the game is ready for something to address that, and they have not done it. I think now we're at a point where they desperately need to do that. So we got a lot more to discuss, guys. This is the longest episode of Rogue Action I think I've ever had on my channel. And we still got more that's going to go over to Heinze's channel. So be sure to check out his link. It is down below. And as always, my brothers, don't forget,